For those of you who had no personal connection with 4-H, when you were first approached about supporting 4-H and working with 4-H, what were 2 or 3 things that really helped you decide it was a decision you wanted to make, and maybe a couple of questions that you had about the program that people could be prepared to have to answer to somebody who's not as familiar with the program as we all are?
Oh, that's a great question. I know that your answers on this can be enormously helpful. I think one of the battles that these good folks fight all the time is that perception that 4-H is, what did somebody call it this morning, cows and cooking. That this is, the face of 4-H is changing. And so for those of you without that 4-H background, what drew you to the table?
I'm the poster child for that.
He's deep inside now.
I didn't grow up in a 4-H family. I was in a military family, and we lived all around the world, but my youngest brothers did have some connection to 4-H. That's not what drew me to it. When we were approached as a company executive, I was involved in philanthropy at the time. I was looking at the other things that we were doing in STEM area and looking at the future workforce issues. And I realized that, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, that it's the life skills that are really the most important part of this. It's not just that you're a science major or that you excel in computer programming. It's how well are you at communicating to other people and being innovative in your thinking and being willing to be a teammate and collaborating and working with others. Those are all kinds of skills that our workforce needs to be very good at in order to be successful and grow the business. And so those are the kinds of people we're really looking for, and the fact that you're doing that in your programs, and that, oh, by the way, there's a science, engineering, and technology component here that you're working on, is icing on the cake for us.
So what I'm hearing you say is, tell the story of 4-H science and 4-H. Don't leave out the and. Amy. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, today's generation, the millennial generation, I mentioned this at a founders luncheon the other day, they're the smartest generation out there. They know everything, or at least they can get to it very quickly.
They think they do. They think they do.
But the problem is that they don't know how to use that information, and they don't know how to work as a team, and what is the beauty for me is that 4-H does that kind of thing and brings it all together and helps them become really effective workers. Come down to it.
Yeah, and what I saw Megan mouth on the challenges that we face with this incoming generation of workers is how to be in community. And I think that's really a really powerful lesson and a value that 4-H brings to the table. Amy, I'm dying to hear what you have to say on this topic too.
Yeah, I definitely am a newbie to 4-H, with the exception that I used to go to Brownies in the church right across the street. That was as close as I got to 4-H. So I am a local kid. So to answer the question, what in particular struck me as I learned about 4-H, and I don't see Diana here right now, but, oh, there she is. As Diana was explaining the footprint and the scope of 4-H, I was extremely impressed because, you know, to get back to the question of making a difference, it really helps to have a partner make a difference who already has such reach, touches so many students, touches so many kids, and does it in so many different geographical places, the states, and has an infrastructure set up to be efficient. So I mean, I hate to sound like an engineer, but I did mention I am one. So when I think about what 4-H can do, they have an enormous amount of machinery in place. What I'm interested in seeing where I think the opportunity to leverage that is in working with some of those other experiments, the 1,000 flowers that have bloomed or not over the last couple of decades, to figure out how do you efficiently use that infrastructure, use those connections, use the fact that you have kind of a lead person in every county, which is just really mind-blowing to me. To think about how do you connect to existing programs where it makes sense so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you can just add on top with your own efforts, with your own funding, with your own ingenious ideas, etc. So to me, the scale really captured my attention. And now the open question is, how do you most efficiently use that existing infrastructure?
Okay. Well, I'm not really eligible to answer the question because I was a 4-H'er. And I remember bringing my yellow cake and clothes that I made to the county fair. So I've been there, done that. But I would like to say that before all these companies signed up as partners with 4-H, I remember when Diana and her partner presented to the AIA and NDIA committees. And I was absolutely excited about the fact that 4-H was starting a set program that was going to be in every county of the nation, as Amy already referred to, because I had heard so much of STEM programs our companies were already involved in, and they were by and large localized where we had a footprint. And this was the first thing I'd ever heard of that had a presence around the country. And clearly, this is a national labor force issue. It's not a regional issue. So you folks are unique in that, and you really need to promote it. I also want to share that on that occasion, I remember my counterparts saying, 4-H, aren't they a bunch of farmers? What could they possibly have to do with aerospace? So we've come a long way in a few years, but you need to know that you're going to have some initial resistance because most people are not familiar with how diversified your programs really are.
I would agree with that. I was sort of cows and canning sort of thing, and I also thought it was only in the Midwest. So, but I think one of the things you've heard a lot of us say is that your scale really intrigues us. That may not be as much help to you when you're trying to raise money locally. So you have to think how to leverage that fact. And I think the point is that whatever you're doing locally will feed into and inform the national picture, just as you will be learning from and receiving support from your colleagues around the nation. So you are you are part of a very sturdy and steady organization. You're not going to go away. But in terms of thinking about what you have to overcome, I think you really have to make a special effort to show that 4-H is at the cutting edge of what's happening in STEM education. We have this great interactive website. We're doing important new work in evaluation that nobody else is doing. We are developing new curriculum all the time. We are responding to the great current needs of our nation. We're right there. And we're doing something that very few other places are doing, which is we are creating youth who can be leaders.